I, 28-year-old female, have been married to my husband, 38-year-old male, for 6 years. We have 5 boys aged 3, 14, our 3 oldest are from his first marriage, and each of us owns our own business. Our lives are busy, needless to say. Recently, my husband has expressed that he does not feel loved or desired by me because I do not initiate intimacy. Although we have intimacy 5 times a week, he says he is always the one who initiates, so he does not feel like I desire him in any way. Once he expressed this to me, I told him I would do what I could to figure out why my libido was lacking. I ordered several supplements to begin taking and even made an appointment with my doctor to discuss a treatment. She sent me a prescription to the pharmacy, but my insurance would not cover it, and an 8-dosage fill, monthly, was going to cost $2,200. So I was really hoping the supplements would do the trick. We had this initial discussion on a Tuesday, and then, come Friday, we left with our children for a family vacation. Thankfully, my supplements had arrived on Friday, so I began taking them and packed them for our trip. Friday evening, we stopped for the night at a nice resort, and once the kids were all settled, I initiated intimacy within our private suite. I thought all was well until we woke up the next morning to get back on the road, and my husband was obviously frustrated and had little patience with me and the children. The remainder of our drive, I held his hand-arm and kissed him occasionally until we arrived at our extended family's home. Our accommodations there were a 5th-wheel RV with only electricity hookup, no water, shower, toilet, etc. This was not new to us, so we weren't bothered by it. We spent the remainder of the day, Saturday and Sunday, with our family. On Monday, we had an outing in the snow, and once we got back to the house, we all took turns showering. That evening, after everyone fell asleep, my husband was restless. He tossed and turned, sighed, and took deep breaths over and over. When I asked him what was bothering him, he said I wasn't doing what I promised. I wasn't initiating intimacy or showing him in any way that I loved and desired him. I gently reminded him where we had been the last few days, and also pointed out that the RV didn't allow for privacy from our children, let alone our youngest sharing our bed with us. I also reminded him I had only been taking my supplements now for 3 days. We argued to the point of tears, and I took myself to our vehicle outside the RV for a break. He joined me within 10 minutes and told me he was just anxious about the other leg of our trip, which was visiting his extended family he hadn't seen in 20 years. He apologized for the way he handled himself and said he understood why intimacy had been lacking in recent days. The next day, we spent more time with our family. That night, I gave him oral intimacy and we went to sleep. We then left the following morning, Wednesday, for our visit with his extended family. After arriving mid-afternoon at his family's house, he left to go see his brother and fix something on our car while the kids and I stayed at the house. That evening, once everyone was asleep, we had phenomenal intimacy. It was the best we had had in a while. All was good. The next day, we spent the day with our family. Same thing on Friday, and then on Saturday we had a big family event to attend. Saturday morning, we woke up earlier than everyone else and showered together, where we were able to have quick intimacy. After everyone woke up, we went shopping and then arrived back at the house to begin getting ready for the event. I think he expected some intimacy during the downtime, but there wasn't enough time or privacy for that. Our family of 7, plus our extended family of 3, were all in the same house and sharing 2 bathrooms. We didn't have ample time for anything other than getting ready for the event. The event went smoothly, and once we got back to the house, we began packing to leave that night and make the 14-hour drive back to our home. We took shifts driving. He drove the first hour, I drove 4, he drove 4, and then I drove the remainder of the trip. We got home around noon, Sunday, got the kids settled, took a shower, and then crashed in our own bed for the first time in over a week. I was exhausted. I woke up at around 5:30 that evening to check on the kids and then get us dinner from town. After dinner, we all settled in for the night and didn't wake up until the next morning at 10. When we woke up, my husband hinted at wanting intimacy, but I had just started my period before we went to bed for the night, so I told him that. He stopped his hints and got up for the day. As the day went on, I could tell he was frustrated, and when I asked him what was bothering him, he told me I rejected him and that he didn't feel desired by me, and it was taking a toll on him. At this point, I was so beyond frustrated and just couldn't believe what he was saying. He told me he wished we had had intimacy in the shower after we got home from our long drive, to which I responded with how exhausted I was once we got home, but that didn't mean much to him. It's Tuesday now. We haven't spoken much to each other, much less had any kind of intimacy. I just don't understand how he could logically expect anything more from me given the circumstances of our trip. I'm at a loss for what else to do. And the supplements I ordered have made a difference, I can already tell, but it just feels like I'm fighting a losing battle. Am I the jerk? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Your husband needs to take a chill pill. Not the idiot by a long shot. You have literally done absolutely everything you agreed you would. Gone above and beyond and really trying to make the effort. Saying you don't want to have intimacy because you just started your period is very valid. Any reason, including being too tired, is valid. Comment 2. Oh, this is messed up. There's a reason older men marry younger women, and that's usually insecurity around women their own age whom they can't control. 3 to 5 times a week isn't enough. With kids, honey, this is not a you problem, but he wants you to think it is. Not the idiot now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for the latest. So, we got back from that trip, right? And things seemed okay for a hot minute. But then my husband's ex, the mother of his 3 oldest, decided to stir the pot. She called him up, crying about some emergency with the kids, and he rushed over there. Turns out there was no emergency. She just wanted to talk about their past and how they could have fixed things. I found out because he left his phone at home and she texted him saying she missed him. Can you believe that? I confronted him when he got back, and he was all defensive, saying she was just going through a tough time. But I wasn't buying it. It felt like a slap in the face, especially after all the effort I'd been putting into our relationship. And the worst part? He didn't even apologize for not telling me the truth. Instead, he turned it around on me, saying I was overreacting and that I didn't trust him. The next day, I was talking to my sister about everything, and she let slip that she'd seen my husband out with his ex a few weeks ago. They were laughing and looked a little too cozy for just talking about the kids. I was fuming. All this time, he's been making me feel like I'm not enough, and he's out there having a good time with his ex? I confronted him again, and this time he couldn't deny it. He said they'd just bumped into each other and decided to catch up. But come on, what are the odds? He promised it was innocent, but I don't know what to believe anymore. It's like he's been playing me this whole time, making me feel guilty for not being affectionate enough when he's the one with secrets. And then, as if things couldn't get any worse, I got a call from my business partner saying there were some financial discrepancies in our accounts. Turns out my husband had been borrowing money from my business without telling me. He said it was to cover some unexpected expenses and that he was planning to pay it back before I noticed. But that's not the point. He went behind my back, again. It's been a couple of days since all this came out, and I've been trying to keep it together for the kids, but inside, I'm a mess. I feel betrayed and manipulated. And the worst part is, I still don't know if I have the full story. What else is he hiding from me? Thanks for reading. My husband lies about being faithful while I'm grieving. My mom and pregnant, so I leave him broken and alone after his accident. My husband, 33-year-old, and I, 25-year-old, have been married for under a year. 5 months ago, I found out I was pregnant. We didn't mean to get pregnant. In fact, I was on birth control, so I don't really even know how it happened. I take it exactly as I'm supposed to, but then again, I guess it's not 100% effective. Either way, when I found out I was pregnant, I was very distraught. I don't particularly want a baby at this moment, and I just lost my mom right after our wedding. Mentally, I just couldn't do it. I told my husband this. He reminded me that our state doesn't allow terminations anymore. I told him how much I did not want the baby, and he seemed very surprised. I don't blame him because I do really love kids, and tell him often about my desire for a family. I was adamant, though, and he told me how dangerous and difficult it is to go to another state for a baby unaliving. He is an attorney, so he knew all of the regulations and things that I didn't. I didn't know what to do. I knew I didn't have that long. But then I had a miscarriage. I just woke up in so much blood one day and had crippling pain. I called my husband from work and we went to the hospital, and yeah, that's what they told me. After that, I cried a lot, and my husband asked me why I was crying. I didn't want the baby anyway. I was so disgusted by him telling me this, and it caused a lot of anger between us. My husband accused me of inducing a miscarriage. I accused him of not caring about me. But eventually, we made up fine. We forgave each other, talked it out, all was fine. Or at least I thought it was. We haven't had intimacy in literally 5 months. Since I got pregnant, and especially since the miscarriage, we have oral intimacy sometimes, mostly me giving to him, but he hasn't shown even the slightest interest in wanting any sort of penetration. I ask him why, and he just shrugs me off, tells me he just doesn't want to right now. He's still affectionate with me otherwise, so at first I believed him. Still, I can't help but feel it's some sort of weird resentment of me for the whole situation. But if it is, he won't acknowledge it. He still acts completely fine and happy with our marriage. He's never even mad at me, just simply no interest in intimacy with me. Finally, 2 days when he wanted me to go down on him again, I told him I just wasn't satisfied and I needed more. He got pretty annoyed, and now it's been 48 hours and he hasn't even touched me. Am I the idiot for admitting that this situation isn't satisfying for me? I've apologized for so much, I don't know what to do. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot, but do you think he's potentially trying to prevent another pregnancy? The last one had a lot of tumultuous emotions. You not feeling ready, being trapped due to state laws, him probably a little excited, and then all the grief, sadness, and quarrels after due to the loss. Maybe it was traumatizing for him as well, and he doesn't want to risk another pregnancy until you're both ready again. I'd recommend therapy. Comment 2. Seems like you both need therapy. You seem to be ignoring your husband's feelings on the pregnancy. He seems to have wanted the child and was shocked when you did not, and then wanted to abort. He is likely grieving the loss of his unborn child and who he thought he was married to. He most likely doesn't want to have intimacy because he is afraid that if you do conceive, then you will just abort it. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. So, things have been spiraling since I last wrote. You know how I mentioned my husband hadn't touched me in 48 hours? Well, that turned into a week. A whole week of cold shoulders and silence. I tried to break the ice, but he was as responsive as a brick wall. Then out of nowhere, he comes home with a brand new car. A car we never discussed, using money we'd been saving for a house. When I confronted him, he shrugged it off, saying he deserved it for all the hard work he's been doing. I couldn't believe it. Here I was, trying to mend our relationship, and he was out there making big decisions without me. But that's not even the half of it. I found out he's been confiding in his assistant, let's call her Miss X, about our personal issues. Miss X, who's always been a little too friendly for my liking, has been offering him support. And by support, I mean late-night talks and cozy lunches. When I asked him about it, he said I was being paranoid and that they were just friends. I felt like I was losing my mind. I started questioning everything, even my own judgment. But then a news dropped. I got a call from a friend who saw my husband and Miss X at a local bar, looking a bit too close. I confronted him again, and this time he couldn't deny it. He admitted they kissed, but insisted it was a one-time mistake. I was devastated. I felt like I'd been walked all over, and I was done doing nothing about it. I told him I needed space to think, and I went to stay with a friend. That's when I found out I was pregnant again. The timing couldn't be worse. I was torn between the shock of the news and the mess of my marriage. I decided to keep the baby, regardless of the state of our relationship. When I told my husband, he was surprisingly supportive. He promised to be there for me and the baby, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that his loyalty was divided. Just when I thought we might be able to work things out, I caught him in another lie. He said he was working late, but a quick call to his office revealed he'd left hours ago. I drove by Miss X's place, and there was his new car, parked outside. That was the last straw. I confronted him when he got home, and this time, I was ready. I told him I knew about his lies, and I couldn't be with someone who had so little respect for me. He begged for forgiveness, but I could see the guilt in his eyes. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about how he'd treated me all along. I made the decision to leave him. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I knew I had to do it for myself and for my baby. I moved out and started the process of divorce. It's been tough, but I'm slowly rebuilding my life. And then, just when I thought I was getting back on my feet, I got a call from the hospital. My husband had been in an accident. He was okay, but he needed someone to pick him up. I went, not sure why I was still the one he called. When I saw him, all bandaged up, something in me softened. He looked at me with such regret, and for a moment I remembered the man I married. But I had to remind myself of everything that had happened. I helped him home, made sure he was comfortable, and then I left. I told him we could talk about how to co-parent once the baby arrived, but our marriage was over. It's been a month of ups and downs, but I'm standing my ground. I'm focusing on myself and my baby, and I'm learning to trust my instincts again. It's not easy, but I'm getting there one step at a time. Thanks for reading this update. My ex-wife plots a family reunion with my estranged mother as the guest of honor, but I play the ultimate power move and have the judge order her to fly my kids back immediately. I'm a 40-year-old man who divorced my wife, a 37-year-old female, about 3 years ago. We have 2 awesome kids, a 6-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy, and I am so grateful to her for blessing me with them. We have 50-50 custody. Brief history. Quarantine hit us hard. I had started a new and stressful job in April of 2020. My ex suffers from borderline personality disorder and obsessive-compulsive personality disorder. The lack of control and uncertainty at this time made her very difficult to live with. She was also experiencing postpartum depression at this time. I was getting calls 2 minutes after work asking where I was, and constantly made to feel guilty for taking care of myself on her time. Days of the silent treatment were normal for me. I called it emotional purgatory. She was a stay-at-home mom at that time. I desperately tried to complete small tasks to lessen the load at home and put my dad hat on the second I walked through the door. I put the kids to bed, washed bottles, cleaned the kitchen, etc. But she was always focusing on what I didn't help with. I begged her to go talk to a therapist and see if medication might be appropriate. I did convince her to come to marriage counseling, which we attempted for about 6 months. In those sessions, it became clear that my feelings weren't going to be heard or considered. I decided to just work on myself and my codependency. I began to work on self-esteem, setting boundaries, and not questioning my reality and my feelings. The healthier I got, the worse she seemed to get, which might sound strange to some. The night it all fell apart, I was watching a playoff game outside on the patio. It was a Tuesday night. I had told her in advance that the game was important to me. I put the kids to bed and started watching the game. She came outside and asked if I could help her clean up around the house. We had someone coming to help with cleaning on Friday, so she wanted to tidy up. I told her, I can't help tonight because I'm watching the game, but I could help tomorrow. She slammed the patio door, came back out while the game was in overtime, and unplugged the TV. I walked out of the house and finished the game on my phone. After that, she asked me to go to a hotel and locked me out of the house. When I asked to come back, she told me to get an apartment, which I did. A week later, she begged me to come back. I said okay, but under the advice of my therapist, I was going to keep my apartment in case she changed her mind. Over the next month, she became obsessed with me breaking my lease. Eventually, I had a moment where I knew I was done trying. The divorce process was messy. She faked a pregnancy and tried to prevent me from getting 50-50 custody. The truth came out and she eventually gave in. At times I considered fighting for full custody, but I know the kids love their mom and it would have broken her. If you made it this far, thank you for your patience. On to the present issue. Our decree states that we alternate spring breaks. The ex took the kids out of state the last 2 years. She asked me in February if she could take them again this year. I agreed because I didn't have plans, and I feel it's important that they see family. She told me she was driving, so I agreed to give them more time to safely travel. I made one request. Please do not take the children to see my mother. She has done this the last 2 times she traveled there. I don't talk to my mother because she stole $60,000 from my grandmother, among other things, and refused to even acknowledge her fault. I now take care of my grandmother and moved her here. This morning, my daughter informed me that they are flying, not driving, and that my ex has planned a visit with my mother and the kids. Since the divorce, there has been a very consistent pattern of her intentionally disregarding simple and reasonable requests. I'll spare you other examples. The point is, I'm fed up. She is flying tomorrow. I asked her to change her flight and return the children to me by Wednesday at 5 p.m. This cuts her trip short by 3 days. but follows the order, so I feel a bit guilty because I know the children will be disappointed. Logically, and based on history, I know this is the only thing she responds to, and I'm sick of being taken advantage of. What are your thoughts? I'm open to hearing that I'm being unreasonable if you feel that's the case. I desperately want to do what's best for the kids, but this is often in conflict with enabling toxic behavior and her disregarding simple boundaries. Thank you for taking the time to read this. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. It's not weird or even unusual when you're in a toxic relationship for one partner to go off the deep end when the other starts getting better. It happened to me too. I grew up with a mother with pretty severe mental illnesses. I know your kids love their mom, but that doesn't mean that they are in a healthy environment. The thing is, you've had a history of letting her run roughshod over you. Imagine how much easier it would be for her to do to your kids. You showed great fortitude in getting out and getting 50/50ths custody. Now is not the time to start slacking off. She's showing you clearly that she's going to do as she pleases. Polish up your shiny backbone, enforce that court order. Look into parenting apps and start documenting everything. Reddit is a goofy place, and I see some shitty replies here. Best of luck to you. Comment 2. Not the idiot. I don't understand exes who do this. I have been no contact with my biological family since 2019, yet my ex seems determined to keep talking to them. As he is not legally allowed to take our daughter to my country of origin without my written permission, he is currently trying to find ways to bring my mother here for a visit. I am sorry your ex is completely disregarding your boundaries. It really sucks. Now, for the update, thanks for sticking around. Well, the plot thickened pretty quick after that last message. Turns out my ex didn't just plan a visit with my mother. She planned a whole family reunion, with my estranged mother as the guest of honor. I found out through a cousin who thought I was in on the plan. The nerve, right? I was fuming, but I kept my cool for the kids' sake. I called my lawyer and we got an emergency hearing. The judge was none too pleased with her stunt and ordered her to fly the kids back immediately. She tried to play the victim, saying I was depriving the kids of family time. But the judge saw right through her act. The kids were back with me by Tuesday night. Now you'd think that would be the end of it, but no. My ex decided to retaliate by spreading rumors about me to our mutual friends, said I was controlling and manipulative. It hurt, seeing people I've known for years look at me sideways. But I had bigger fish to fry. I focused on the kids, making sure they didn't feel like pawns in some twisted game. We had a great week, just the three of us, doing all their favorite things. I wanted them to know they were loved, no matter what. Then, out of the blue, my ex shows up at my door, all tears and apologies. Said she realized how wrong she was, how she missed our family. She wanted to talk about reconciling. Can you believe that? After everything she put us through? I told her we could talk, but only in the presence of our therapists. I wasn't about to let my guard down again. She agreed, surprisingly. So we had a session, and it was enlightening. She admitted to feeling lost without me, to acting out of spite. It was a lot to take in. But here's where I got my so-called revenge. I didn't yell, didn't accuse. I simply told her that while I cared about her well-being, our relationship was over, that I'd be there for the kids, always. But that was it. The look on her face was something I'll never forget. It was like she finally understood that she couldn't manipulate me anymore, that I was truly done. The aftermath has been peaceful, actually. She's backed off, sticking to the custody schedule without any drama. Our mutual friends have started to see the truth, and some have even apologized for doubting me. The kids are happy, and that's all that matters to me. So, yeah, it's been a chaotic ride, but I'm hopeful for the future, for me and the kids. Thanks for reading. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.